All right, we are live, rolling. Trying to squeeze in another interview prior to NC State Miami, final game of the day. Effectively a quarterfinal. Winner makes it to semifinal action. And I'm joined by D1Baseball's Fitt to talk some projection, speculation, other general tomfoolery.
Wherever you want to go, man. The world is our oyster here.
It is. I've got a pretty simple first question for you. I just need you to fill in the blank, Aaron. Wake Forest is the best ACC team you have seen since blank.
I'm just going to go gut reaction without thinking about it. 2014 Virginia.
Okay.
That team went wire to wire, if you recall. It basically is number one in the regular season. They were number one overall seed. They got to Omaha and lost in the final game of the championship series to Vanderbilt on that Johnny Norwood home run. But that was a better team than the 15 team that won it for UVA.
Right.
There have been some very good teams, obviously, in the league since then. But for me, that team, I mean, obviously, Carolina in 2013 would be on that short list, but most recently would be 14 Virginia. But Wake Forest, I mean, we had this discussion in our staff group chat today. Are they better than Tennessee was last year? You know, that historic run, Tennessee dominated the SEC with, 27-3 or some crazy
something
thing
like that.
I mean, it was absurd the season they had. They were so far above everybody else in basically every category. And Wake is kind of like that this year, man. Like if you look at their numbers side by side and their rankings in various statistical categories side by side with Tennessee, it's almost eerie. It's a mirror image. And so we loved Wake heading into the year, man, but I did not see this coming. Like this degree of true excellence, it's quite a story.
Yeah, and there have not. The most impressive thing about Wake, because we've seen this with any other highly ranked team this season, there haven't been no slip-ups, none. Yeah. I mean, there was the opening Friday loss to Pitt, where Pitt shut them out miraculously somehow 3-0.
Right.
But then it's 20+ runs each of the next 2 days, and Wake Forest just, I mean, in commanding fashion, takes the series.
I felt like every time they lost the game, that was what happened. They just bounced back and just smothered you, and I'm still blown away by the fact that they lead the country in ERA playing in that. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. They play in a bandbox. They don't like to call it that. They don't like when we call it that either, but that's what it is. It's a bandbox, and it's absurd. It's absurd. I mean, they're like a full run better than the next best Power 5 pitching staff in ERA.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, typically it's we're talking about their ballpark in the context of, okay, will the hitting play elsewhere? Now we're talking about it as a positive for them, keeping balls in the yard and getting recorded outs there at the couch.
And their defense too. I mean, you got to give them so much credit because they recognize as a coaching staff that defense was a problem. 2 years ago, it was terrible.
Yeah,
I mean, it was disgracefully bad. And they made it a point of emphasis last year, and it was better last year, and now it's very good, and I love the fact that you're playing a true freshman at shortstop who doesn't bring much offense in Merrick Houston, but he's the guy who can pick it and take care of the ball at that crucial position. They've got enough offense elsewhere. We're just going to, take whatever we can get from this guy offensively, but we want somebody who can take care of the ball at shortstop, and that's the right way to do it. But also, I mean, Brock Wilkins gotten so much better at third base, and Kurtz at first is as good a defensive first baseman probably as you'll find in the country. So there's so much to like about their team. We could gush about them for a long time.
We could. We only have like 15 minutes in total. So let's do some projection speculation. First off, how many ACC teams do you think, as of right now, are comfortably in?
I believe the number is 8.
Yeah.
The word comfortably is doing a lot of work here.
Yeah, right. Because, I mean, with NC State, Wolfpack fans are never comfortable anymore.
And they shouldn't be.
Right,
After last year, I mean, come on. Like, I remember sitting in Charlotte in the ACC tournament last year.
It wasn't even a thought that they wouldn't make it. We all left. And
I think Elliot at one point asked me, he's like, we're in, right? And I was like, of course you're in. Like, you kidding? You're not even on the bubble. You're like a 2 seed. We had them as a 2 seed. So that one came out of left field. So you never say never. But I think there's, right now the bubble is really, really uncommonly soft.
Yeah.
And some of those bids could start disappearing over the next 3 days. But for now, NC State looks like they're in pretty comfortably. Notre Dame is the one that should be sweating.
Yeah.
At the moment, we've got them in. I don't know if that will hold. Now, they do need to beat Wake Forest tomorrow in a game that means less than nothing for Wake. Like if I'm Wake, the only thing I want is to make sure that Wilkin and Kirsch don't get hit by a pitch on the hand tomorrow. So that means sit them, then sit them. But like that game couldn't mean less. They're locked into the number 1 national seed. They would like to win the ACC title, but that game will have no bearing on it. So I don't know. Nonetheless, if Notre Dame wins that game, they'll get a nice RPI boost. They'll finish at 500 aggregate in the league. It means something for Notre Dame, that's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So I think they're the only one. I mean, assuming, which we know is we've established is a bad thing about NC State, assuming the Wolfpack is in, I think Notre Dame really the only ones left lingering. No, North Carolina really impressive against Virginia here, and again, I'm doing a lot of assuming in that maybe we get the full tournament in. There's some impending weather that might prevent that.
I'm concerned about that, Daron.
Yeah. So this is assuming we get a full tournament in. If North Carolina makes it to a championship game, have they thrust themselves up into a hosting situation again?
I think if they win the championship, they have a chance. I don't think just getting there will be enough. Last year, I think they entered the conference tournament with a 500 record in the league, and then they won it. But they also were red hot for a couple of weeks before the conference tournament last year, which this year they haven't been. They've been playing well, but then they got swept, and so it's kind of they've been up and down. They don't have just the snowball rolling down the hill momentum factor this time around. So I don't think just getting to Sunday would be enough. But if they win it, they're in the discussion. And even then, I don't know that it's a guarantee, but they'd be in the discussion.
Yeah. Let's talk Clemson. Man, they just continue to be red hot. They'll play BC tomorrow morning at 11 for a spot in the semifinals. I mean, they're a top 8, right? No matter what. They're a top 8, no matter what.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Aside from the ones, which I think we can comfortably say is Wake, we can comfortably say is Clemson, is Virginia.
Right? Virginia right now, we still, even after losing today, I would say is still the 8th of the top 8 national seeds for me. And somebody could jump up and take it from them. But for now, I think they're still in position.
Yeah, so let's take those 3 out of the equation. Of those who are going to end up on the 2 or 3 line, which situation sort of seems more favorable for you, just based on where they could possibly go, how they're playing currently, how they would match up against a potential 1 seed that they would visit?
Yeah, so we've got Miami, who's going to host, probably is not a non-top 8, most likely as a host.
Yeah,
and then you've got a BC or a Duke. We've been saying probably would be a 5th host in the ACC now.
Yeah, I'm glad you added those. I sort of.
And maybe North Carolina could jump up into there at the very, again, if they can win the whole thing, maybe they leapfrog BC and Duke. For now, I kind of like BC as that 5th team in the ACC to host. So then you're looking at North Carolina, Duke, and NC State, and maybe Notre Dame as being your 2 and 3 seeds.
Yeah. So I narrowed that down a lot for you, actually, unintentionally.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think one of those teams is going to wind up in Conway.
Yeah.
Coastal Carolina is going to host. And if you're a team like NC State or North Carolina, but especially NC State, a team that hits the ball out of the yard, a very, very offensive club, I think that's a good environment for you because that's an offensive park. And Coastal doesn't have pitching that scares you.
Yeah.
What they have is they have offensive firepower. And so, I think that's a winnable regional. I like Coastal's club. This is not the 2016 Coastal club. It's not. That team had arms that were well above this staff. Yeah. And so that would be, I think, if I were a two seed in this region, I would love to, probably, I wouldn't say love, but I'd like to go there. I think that's a region where I'd feel pretty good about it as an ACC team. So, and if you're heading to let's say South Carolina, I don't think South Carolina is going to host after losing today. But if they do, I'd love to get in there because South Carolina has been not playing good baseball for a solid month now, and they're vulnerable. They're not healthy. Should they host, that would be a logical one. But I think you'll see one of those AC teams in Conway, and the other 2 are going to have to go somewhere else. Now, maybe Auburn, maybe Alabama.
Yeah, Nashville with Vandy.
Nashville, yeah. Those would be probably the 3 closest. But, you might see somebody get shipped out west, especially if Auburn, let's say you've got Troy right down the road. That's a natural 2 seed for them. You wouldn't necessarily send an ACC team down there. So, there's a lot of different ways that the pieces can come together. But there's only one regional out west this year. There's going to be only one. and that's Stanford. Maybe an ACC team gets sent out there.
Yeah. Regarding the weather here, there have been rumblings I have heard that rather than testing out a much larger window on Saturday here to get 2 games in, Boshemer Stadium at North Carolina has always, since this venue has hosted the ACC tournament, has always been the backup location, just in case something happens. The organizers have that field at their disposal should they want to split up, play a semifinal at each location, and then have an entire day at each place to get a game in. Now that creates nightmares for TV and again even event staff getting over there and media covering.
And me, I'm not good at self-transportation or teleportation yet, so I'm working on that skill, but it's not here yet.
Yeah, the clone of Aaron is still in a chamber, sort of developing. It's
right.
It's not quite there yet. So I say all of that to say if there are a lot of like moving parts to this week. In the event that there is not semifinal games and a championship game, does that hurt anybody in the conference?
I think Notre Dame, NC State. Should they get to Saturday, they'd love to get another win. I mean, I think if they get Saturday, they're probably safe. But that's a team that could use another win. North Carolina trying to play their way up into the hosting line. BC, I think will be okay as a host if they get to Saturday. I think they probably will be fine. Then if the rest of the weekend was canceled, they'd be like, all right, we did enough. We'll host. We'll go home. And then Wake Forest, nothing can affect Wake Forest. So, and Miami is the other one that I think is probably locked in as a host. If they were to win this conference tournament, maybe they could sneak into the top 8, take Virginia's spot.
Yeah.
So that's another team that has something to play for here this weekend.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you mentioned all of that, because I think especially after the 11 a.m. game tomorrow, it's sort of, and Mike Gambino was quick to correct me in the same regard earlier when I mentioned those other 2 games. He said, wait, there are still things to play for, even if it's not the ACC championship. I mean, there's moving parts all over the place. So any of these teams would like to pick up another game, or at the very least.
But some of them wouldn't.
Yeah, well, right. some of them wouldn't. Some of them.
Wake Forest would be fine just going home. Clemson, I think, will be, if they get to Saturday, what else do they need to do? Let's go home. Yeah. So, I mean, some of these teams don't need to do much else.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, we'll let you get to covering NC State, Miami, the conclusion of our day here at Durham Bulls Athletic Park. He's Aaron Fitt. Appreciate you, man, as always.
Always a pleasure.
Always. And I mean, I'd say bye, but I'm just going to see you in here. So that's Aaron Fitt.